Oh, good. You just got here just in time to talk to Professor Green about the Revolutionary War.
Intrude! Oh, hey. Didn't see you coming there. My name is Professor Green, and I'm going to take you on a journey through the Revolutionary War. Let's begin with the French and Indian War, which lasted from 1754 to 1763. It is also referred to as the 7 Years' War. The conflict as pertaining to America was between the English and the French for land in North America. Colonists were supportive of the war, and many wanted to join the fight, but King George II was suspicious and refused to let them join the militia. Many who tried to join were humiliated by the British soldiers. Some members who signed the Declaration years later had tried to join and had been stripped down and sent home. So although colonists had to hand over their horses, feed, wagons, and quarters for the war cause, they were denied the right to defend their own lands. England eventually won, but it nearly bankrupted them. In order to pay off debts, they decided to tax the American colonists. On April 5, 1764, just 1 year after the end of the French and Indian War, Parliament passed a modified Sugar and Molasses Act. The old tax had mostly been evaded by the black market, and so England reduced the rate of tax on molasses, while they took measures to strictly enforce it. But it also added other foreign goods that would be taxed. This tax nearly destroyed the colonist economy, as they were forced to quit trade with other countries, which gave them less money to buy English goods. The colonists were furious, but things were only going to get worse. On February 17, 1765, the Stamp Bill was redone, and it was England's first serious attempt to control the colonies. English debt had nearly doubled since the war, and so they just taxed the American colonists more and more, starting with this act. Tensions between England and the colonists were starting to erupt, setting the stage for the Boston Massacre. On March 5, 1770, tensions grew to a head. 50 colonists began throwing sticks, stones, and snowballs at a British sentinel. Captain Thomas Preston called in more soldiers, and they too were attacked by the angry colonial mob. These soldiers fired into the mob, killing 3 and wounding 8 others, 2 of which died later. After the massacre, things got worse. Although England repealed the Townshend Acts, colonists were too angry at this point to calm down, and 2 taxes were still being collected, one on tea and one on sugar. The East India Trading Company was nearly bankrupt, so Lord North decided to grant them trading monopoly with the American colonies. The tax on tea was to be maintained, but the company would be able to sell its tea for less. The colonists saw right through the plan and worried that the East India Trading Company would soon raise their prices. Many began to boycott, and one night some colonists reacted extremely. They disguised themselves as Indians and dumped 342 chests of tea from the boats into the harbor. The tea would have been worth about $750,000 today. As the offenders were disguised, none were caught or punished. The event became known as the Boston Tea Party. After the Boston Tea Party, a series of acts were passed aimed at better controlling the colonies. These were known as the Intolerable Acts. To address the growing tensions and problems of the day, every colony elected delegates, except for Georgia, to meet in Philadelphia on October 26, 1774. This was called the Continental Congress. Because the colonies had lived separately from each other, they all had different ideas on how to handle things, and they didn't trust each other at all. When they were finally able to overcome all of this, they agreed on the Declaration and Resolves, which laid out for England all of their grievances. Congress decided to meet again in a year if England did not address these grievances. On top of all of this, merchants throughout the colonies made a pact to stop buying English goods. They were to keep it up until England took away the Intolerable Acts. But England had their own plans. General Gage decided that on April 19, 1775, he would send troops quartered in Boston to Lexington to capture Sam Adams and John Hancock, then march to Concord, where they would seize colonial gunpowder. But spies and friends found out the plan. They set up a code. 1 lantern hanging in the Boston's North Church meant troops were coming by land. 2 lanterns meant they were coming by sea. Paul Revere set off in the middle of the night with the news and hung 2 lanterns in the church, thus warning the colonists and spoiling Gage's plot. During the French and Indian War, colonists called Minutemen were established to defend themselves from Native Americans and Frenchmen. They were called Minutemen because they could fight at a minute's notice. These men were soon to be needed. Word spread around from town to town after Revere lit the lanterns, and colonists gathered to confront the British soldiers marching to Lexington and Concord. When 240 soldiers arrived, they found about 70 Minutemen were blocking the way to Lexington. Both stood unsure what to do, and then a bullet was fired, no one knows by whom. It was a shot heard around the world, for it was the first shot of the Revolutionary War. Now things were in motion, for Lexington had changed things forever. A Second Continental Congress was held in the spring of 1776. The delegates present still had many differences, so there was much debate from May until well into the summer. But in the summer of 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed. America was officially at war with Britain for independence. On June 15th, George Washington was named Commander-in-Chief of the new independent America. The very next day, a great victory happened for America. On the night of June 16, 1775, a detail of American troops acting under orders from Artemas Ward moved out of their camp carrying picks, shovels, and guns. They entrenched themselves on a rise located on the Charleston Peninsula, which overlooked Boston. Their destination, Bunker Hill. But by mistake, they entrenched themselves on Breed's Hill, putting them closer to the British position. The British could have easily surrounded the colonists with their ships at sea, but decided to rush the hill, expecting the colonists to retreat. They were wrong. It took them 3 charges to take the hill, and at a great cost. Of the 2,300 British soldiers who had gone through the ordeal, 1,054 were either killed or wounded. America may have lost the battle, but to them it was a great victory, and spurred support and morale for the war. A few weeks later, on July 2, 1775, George Washington rode into Cambridge, Massachusetts to take command of the new American army. He had a formidable task ahead of him. Americans had little military experience and few supplies, while England had both. America had little chance of success, but Washington boldly took it all on, using strategy to make up for their shortcomings. After many years of battle, Washington had a great victory, that of Princeton in 1777. This victory gave America respect in the eyes of other countries, and in 1778 the French entered the war on the side of the colonists. With the French's help, America was able to drive Britain out. In 1782, Cornwallis surrendered to American and French forces at Yorktown. So embarrassed were the British that Cornwallis refused to even come out of his tent to greet Washington for the surrender. A year later, on April 19, 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed by the United States of America and Great Britain, officially ending the Revolutionary War.
Huh? Oh yeah, I normally read with my sunglasses on. But anyways, hope you enjoyed the show. Professor Green, Journey to the Revolutionary War.